things just got a lot worse for the Lions and Jahmyr Gibbs, okay? Because Bijan signed a massive extension, 3 years, 75 million, and this is before Gibbs gets his. So at this point, you have Bijan signing the big extension, and now Gibbs's camp is going to be even more in the lane of, well, we deserve at least that. At least that. Now I know Dan Campbell said, it's not, going to hurt us, not that big of a deal. Trust me, this puts a lot more pressure on this to get done. And if the Lions are already kind of, we're not going to just make a deal to make a deal here, right? We're going to not make them the highest paid or whatever it is. This does not help because now you have on paper the exact number that becomes almost a minimum. There's no reason that Bijan, right, should be. I mean, look, Bijan's a phenomenal running back, right? He's on the level of Jahmyr Gibbs. It'd be tough to choose between the two, but it's not a situation of Bijan being better than Jahmyr Gibbs to the point of, you know what? Yeah, I'll take a little bit less than him. He's going to say, look, I want the same amount. Now, with that said, as I've made very clear, if you're Gibbs, you got to be careful. We've seen time and time again guys that don't get their normal offseason routines end up getting injured somewhere during the year. You hope that would never happen. I get all of that, but it is a reality, right? We could pretend it's not. No, it is a freaking reality that guys who don't get their offseason stuff in, they're higher likelihood that they can get hurt. So he's got to figure this out too. What this looks like, how this goes, we still don't know, but this is far worse now than it was just a day ago for the Lions. The Lions undoubtedly wanted to get this done right off the bat. Undoubtedly wanted to get this done right off the bat. And what's holding it up exactly, I'm not entirely sure, right? I guess that's still something, that I guess we'll learn more of in the future, but they got to figure it out because if the line Gibbs is now, especially with Montgomery gone, Gibbs is now the most important person on this offense, right? I mean, obviously you could make the argument Jared Goff, but the whole thing doesn't really work without the running game that the Lions have. I understand they have great receivers, but the running game kind of fuels that, right? It's kind of a yin and a yang, right? Where the receivers feed off of the fact that defenses have to pay attention to the running game. The running backs are such a big part of the passing game, right? Little dump downs to Gibbs and things like that. You lose that, and you just because Gibbs is not replaceable. He's not. It's not like, well, maybe I get a backup in here who can give you what Gibbs can give you. There's a reason they went all in on Gibbs, and Montgomery is no longer on the team because Gibbs, as good as Montgomery was for them, and as good as the kind of dual threat was, Gibbs is on another level, right? He is just a huge playmaker, and so I'm hoping we hear before Friday that a deal is done so that the Lions can have a full off season with Gibbs under contract, right? You just got to find a way to get this done, but this makes it even worse because now, like I said, there is just no reason that if Gibbs is already holding in, there's no reason that he would not take something close to this. He if and this, from what I understand, this is market setting, right? This is new and improved in terms of running back money. This is more than Saquon, which was a huge deal even at the time. So it's like, man, the Lions, you got to figure this out. You had a rough year last year, comparison, right, to the year prior. You got to figure this out, and you got to sit them down and just say, we're going to figure this out today. Here's our concerns. Here are your concerns. How do we put those things together and make this good? Because to be completely honest with you, I usually am siding with a lot of the front offices in these instances because to me, it always seems that, agents are constantly causing issues with like, a player. I talked about it with the Micah situation, right? I just thought the agents were getting in the way of what actually Micah wanted, right? There's this talk all about what him and Jerry Jones, the conversation they had, but I think that's not giving Micah enough credit. I think Micah loved the Cowboys. I think Micah was like, "Yeah, hey, I'll take a team friendly deal here." And then his agent talked him out of it. And now you see, with the Packers, he's dealing with an injury. Things I just think he would have much rather have stayed with the Cowboys under the deal he had kind of made with Jerry versus what we got, right? And then of course Micah just, was saying, "Oh well, I didn't know all of that and stuff like that. No, no, no. We all know how it went, right? The agent kinda talked him into it. But in this instance, it's tough for me to blame necessarily Jahmyr Gibbs when there is no reason, unless injury concerns or your problem, there's no reason not to give this guy top of the line money. If I look at Jahmyr Gibbs right now, right, his age, he is only 24 years old. So let's say you sign him to a 3-year extension. I don't even know how much he has left. Well, let's just say he has 2 years left. Let's say, he has 2 years left and then, a 3-year extension on top. That gets you till he's 29. Not that old, right? We're not talking about a 29-year-old running back you're signing to a 5-year extension. You're talking about a 24-year-old. And so I don't fully grasp right now what the holdup necessarily is. And if it comes out that because the Lions kind of didn't get this done early, that the price actually went up for Jahmyr Gibbs, that's gonna be very regrettable from the front office. It just will be. It will be very, very regrettable because if you coulda got him on a better deal just by giving him what he wanted initially, you're gonna look foolish, and you had to know that Robinson was also gonna want this contract. So you had to know, "Look, we don't have unlimited time here, but we will see what happens." Alright. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.